Welcome in, my name is Letiredd, content creator over on Twitch, mainly stream Star Citizen, but I'm human and stream other things once in a while as well. Alright, today we are talking about Inside Star Citizen Alpha 4.0, what we do in space. What we do in space, there we go. So we're going to check this out. It's actually really nice to not see something on cargo, which is also part of the reason why I started to become hopeful that maybe today we got the 324 to wave 1. But, that's probably just my hopium talking. But anyways, all right, with that, let's go ahead and jump right into this react.
By this point, it's pretty safe to say that all of you watching now know that Pyro is the next star system upcoming to the Star Citizen Persistent Universe in the upcoming Alpha 4.0. And 2 weeks ago, we started ISC's journey through the jump point to get there. And it's a good one. You should check it out if you haven't already. But what is there actually to do in the Pyro system once we get there? It's not all just pandemonium and chaos. To start, nearly every mission type and every gameplay system we've developed for Stanton works there as well. That means a life of cargo, salvage, mining, bounty hunting missions, and more are already ready to go due to their systemic development. But that's just the head start. There are also a number of new mission types, gameplay systems, and wholly unique experiences that arrive with Pyro and Alpha 4.0. And we'll be spending the next several weeks discussing them. Starting this week with What We Do in Space, where we're talking about a new kind of space station built with the more efficient level design lessons learned in Stanton. A brand new, ongoing, never stopping, never quitting contested zone system that'll reward you more and more the longer you can hold it. And a sneak peek at asteroid bases that'll require both ship and FPS combat combined to overcome and explore for its rewards. Let's find out more.
Okay. Yes, all right. I'm gonna put back on my optimistic hat. I'm gonna keep my optimistic hat on, and I'm gonna say abso-freaking-lutely. But let's talk about what he just said real quick. Okay, so I've been complaining for quite a while now about the fact that there is not enough content, things to go do in the game. So this is why one of the reasons why I'm so excited about said update with Pyro is because it's going to hopefully finally bring in some of what I feel has been really missing, which is a progression, which is new things to do, new places to discover, actually do some exploration. Okay, but anyways, I digress. The point of what I'm trying to say is this is really cool. Why? Because we just started hearing about something awesome, or two things that are awesome, and he just brought up a third, which I'm curious about. But contested zones, abso-freaking-lucy, abso-freaking-lucy, exactly. Abso-freaking-lucy. Let's try that again. Abso-freaking-lutely. I am all for contested zones. That sounds like it's going to be something really fun. And here's where I think it's become super interesting is it's going to concentrate some of the PvP into one zone, therefore freeing up other space for people doing just cargo, people just doing salvage, people doing mining. Now, it's not going to eliminate, absolutely not, the amount of, or maybe just a little bit, the amount of piracy and stuff like that. But I like kind of like how we saw with Ghost Hollow and Money from Nothing. You create these PvP scenarios where there's an actual goal and reason to, do them. Unfortunately, Money from Nothing is really not much money for anything. So that's was a little disappointing. And I know we've talked about this a lot, the fact that CIG right now is just not nailing the payout system. But as we were talking about earlier, this is a game in development. There's a lot of balance that has to come with it. There's a lot of systems that are being implemented. So to a certain extent, I'm still trying to give them the benefit of the doubt, even though it's been a while that they've been doing this. But all right, what did I miss? I feel like there's a lot to do, but they haven't mixed any of it together really. No, and that's what is unfortunate. And that's where I'm really happy to see what the cargo brings, because there's actually seems to be a real path and progression to that entire mission chain. If what's up, Devil? If you want to bounty hunt, you're going to be in space. Mercenary, you're in the ground. Hearing there will be missions combining the two. Yes, please. Exactly. So asteroid bases, yes, I'm all for that. I think we can all agree that's probably something that's going to be awesome to do. It's something that completely fits within the verse. Many of us are going to probably say, well, how the hell wasn't this in here before? And yeah, it just feels like another piece of the puzzle that was missing that's finally being added in. All right, let's get back to this.
So let's start with space stations.
So in Pyro, we have 12 space stations. One of them is the jump point station that you arrive at, coming from Stanton.
When you arrive in the gas cloud, you can't see every part of the station. It's impossible. In your cockpit, you're just gonna see like a bit of it. And then when you get closer, you're gonna see like, oh, yeah, that's huge.
They are quite a bit bigger and more involved than you would find in Stanton.
The exteriors are very aggressive looking. They're very spiky. There's an almost fractal nature to it.
The space stations are owned to like different like factions, so you can see like the factions and branding on top of some of the stations. And then you can see like, oh, if you're like rough and ready, you're gonna have problems.
The rough and ready gang is
Okay, I think already quickly we can say this looks freaking great. The stealth kills we saw in FPS, absolutely super down for that, but we know it works once in a while. But we'll see. But this all looks really cool. The coming into a space station and it being covered and hidden by the cloud, fuck yes, it gave me serious Battlestar Galactica vibes, and I'm all for that.
is one of our main operators in the Pyro system. Almost every single rest stop refueling station is going to be run by Rough and Ready. They started off back in 2939 when this enforcer named Rook had enough. He had this great plan about how they could take over the fuel operations in the system, and the ruling council of the headhunters deemed that it was too risky. But a lot of other people had gotten wind of Rook's plans, and so he ended up splintering off and kind of forming his own gang. Rook decided to take on this symbology of rest and relax, which is a known refueling station, and kind of do their own spin on it. And they took the double R and they became Rough and Ready. While they're totally down to defend their territory and they're not going to take any BS from anyone who's opening fire or hurting their business, they also don't get dragged unnecessarily into conflict.
Okay, that bit of lore right there was incredibly satisfying. That was very, very satisfying. What's up, J-Cons? Welcome in. I'm all for more lore in the game, and I hope we get some with 4.0. I mean, I think this game needs it to retain certain players, because I've talked to players who play this like, I just don't know what my purpose is. Why am I here? What am I doing? Like, what's my reason? Why are things the way they are? I've talked to veteran players and told them certain things. They're like, holy crap, I had no idea. If you don't go look up the lore yourself or follow someone like the Astro Historian and, watch that stuff, it's you're not going to see it. You're just not going to see any lore. What's up, J-Guns? All right, let's keep going.
Each of the 12 stations will have a unique exterior, and some of the ones will be Starlight Service Station, Obituary.
And that's exactly so. That's actually one of the things that I just taught another player is why Hurston has no weapons sold anywhere on the planet. Lorville. So I forget what the exact term they use, but it's basically full of indentured servants. It's people who like either got too far into debt or very shitty situations or forced or arms twisted into this service, where essentially they're indentured servants. Essentially. So they don't sell weapons on the surface of Hurston because they don't want these people to arm themselves and potentially rebel. So that's why you only get weapons sold on Everest when you're around Hurston.
A very happy name. Gaslight, but maybe that's not what it's really called. And Megumi Refueling, which is not as easy as it sounds to say. And of course, there's Checkmate Station, which is a little bit different to how you may have seen it in Pyro Playground and CitizenCon. And there's also Ruin Station.
What sets Ruin apart? It's the big LEO. It was originally Checkmate that you would have seen in Pyro, but it's been greatly expanded. It has significantly revised and enlarged interior with much more gameplay opportunity.
When you arrive in a Pyro space station, you'll recognize some of the activities that you already do in Stanton to be done there as well.
They have the same facilities, things like weapon shops, food courts, hangars.
You have direct access from your hangar to the cargo deck, and that's where you can buy your commodities or sell them, and then you can return right away into your instance hangar and then go off on your trip.
So yeah, this all seems pretty straightforward, like the stations we already have. I mean, except it's in a really cool setting, which is Pyro. So, but wait, Jinky, what you say is incredibly interesting. Just got confirmation. New Evocati build slated for release later today. The build is a Wave 1 candidate, and if successful, will be released late tonight. Fuck yes. So, Jinky, it's really interesting that you say that because I hadn't heard anything about any potential wipes for 324 for a long time, especially since one of the last things I said in an ISC was we're not going to wipe until we absolutely necessarily have to. Here's what I heard this morning listening to Board Gamer's video. All right, is he said there is now talk of a potential wipe for 324 because the changes and the restructure is so great that it may be one of the only things they can do to make sure that the release of it is stable or as stable as possible. I'm not going to say stable. We know that that's a flat out lie. But that's the last thing I heard. So maybe I don't know, J-Guns. It's all up into the air. I'm just going to say it. It's not popular with that many people, I know. I am all in favor of a full wipe, even though I just was grinding my way to a C2, which if they wipe in the next 2 days, it's going to sting a little bit, but that's okay. I'm okay with it. I've made my peace. The increment of a major version means incompatible with prior versions, no good path to update. And that's actually a fantastic way of putting it. And I absolutely agree. In my limited knowledge of programming and developing, it just seems logical to want to have a fresh start. And I know it's not popular with all players, but let's be honest, it's I think necessary for me at least. I just think it'll give me an even greater reason to want to play. So if they're looking to bring in player engagement, then yeah, guys, come on, let's go. Let's do the wipe. Give it to me. Come on, I want to do it. Jared did say that if a wipe happens, it's as a last resort. So if the only way for them to get 324 out, then so be it. Exactly, and that's exactly what he said. I'm okay with it. I'll get the crap that just disappeared in 323 release. Exactly. It's an alpha. We have to remember that. As frustrating as that can all be for us at times, I think we all have to remember that one of the reasons why we get so frustrated is because we want to see this game succeed and we want to play it more. We want it to play stably. All right, let's get back to this.
From there, you can also access the external freight elevators to easily load your whole seas. And so we've made these gameplay loops much less tiring in Pyro.
And in Ruin Station, we'll have something called the Ghost Arena, which we'll let you discover for yourselves.
So a contested zone, design-wise, we are likening them to kind of a classic MMO dungeon. Instead of the primary way of accessing this content being behind missions, we are taking more of an open approach.
It is an open space for players to go in and farm, get loot, some special rewards, and explore the station even more.
So what I really like about the contested zones is the fact that they are right there next to the social space. It's really quick access, which I think is something that makes Pyro unique. You can be in the social space, you have your shops, you have the hub, you have the clinic, but the contested zone is right there, often through just a door, an airlock.
This will be very visually distinctive. It'll be very cold, there'll be ice along the walls. Some of these don't have the life support systems. The power will be generally out.
We have booby traps and mines. You'll hear the odd rustling inside the vents with some potential surprises in it.
At some point, you'll be facing multiple doors.
So what did we just see? We saw some cool shit. Those contested areas sound freaking awesome. I have been really upset with loot recently, which is like 60% of the reason why I play this game is just because I'm a loot goblin and I like going around flying places to find different loot. But that's sucked recently. So if they give us a spot where you can go knowing there's goodies, I am all for that. Now, the other thing they mentioned that I just want to point out, because if I'm correct, I do remember recently hearing that we are going to be getting a new creature with 4.0, And he just mentioned you're going to hear things crawling around and clunking around in the air vents, ducts, and there might be a surprise. So, xenomorphs, right? Xenomorphs, we all agree they're bringing in xenomorphs. KT, what's up, buddy? It's also an alpha that has banked 700 million. It's time for it to become a game where I don't have to make my own fun and not crash every few hours. Absolutely. And that's fair. But it's 700 million that went towards three things: building an engine, making a single player game, and an MMO. And that's the problem, is they split their time between the three, and now they're slowly moving towards splitting their time between two because they're still going to develop the engine. But I agree. I do want game, and not just the test game. Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I've been vocal recently about, hey guys, be careful about your marketing when you're talking about the live version, because it's still an alpha. Stop trying to sell it like it's a working game, because it's not. And even though things have been really encouraging lately, I still completely agree with KT's take. Like, there's tons of frustration to be had with the fact that people have put in thousands of dollars. KT was one of the ones that when 3.19 dropped, he hit Concierge and couldn't log in for 3 weeks. How many of us think that we would have remained cool, calm, and collected throughout that time, knowing how much money you would spend? And because Concierge is a lot of money, all right? For any game, that's a ton of money. So I 100% understand the frustration people have. It's completely justified in my mind. That's a confirmed 2 billion. People are saying it was higher, but I only know the 2 billion was confirmed. So there's so many reasons why that could cost that much. There's so many things they could be potentially including, like what I think is that 2 billion is the overhead, complete overhead umbrella for the entirety of Rockstar over the time they've been developing it. But that also means whatever support and teams they have working on Red Dead Online, whatever support and teams they had working on GTA 5 Online, and then the development of GTA 6. So I think that was their overhead potentially over the last X years. But because if it's $2 billion purely in development, that's like absolute insanity. But then again, when you start doing the math and you take into account, like, Rockstar has what, like 6,000 to 8,000 employees. Let's say just for, shits and giggles, all those employees are making 100 grand a year, which they're probably not, let's be honest. But let's just say 7,000 employees times 100K a year. That's $700 million. So now that number starts to make a little bit more sense. And then licensing and stuff like that they may potentially have, which they shouldn't have much of. But then again, it depends on what kind of game they're trying to bring us. All right, let's get back to this Star Citizen stuff.
And every door is giving you different things to fight, different rewards, and so you have to choose where to go. And some of them will be blocked through some puzzle elements, like key cards, to allow you to open the door and access the wing.
Some areas are more secure than others with better rewards. Other areas are highly contested and there's more players coming into that space and more like an arena. We really want to take advantage of that, the vibe for Pyro of PvP, of lawlessness, of being out, sometimes alone, but hopefully you're there with your buddies to help back you up.
The zone inhabits various types of outlaws. These inhabitants are a constant population within this space. So they're not spawned via missions, they just exist there, and they will respawn over time. So this is a constantly inhabited space with a constant flow of challenges. It also inhabits creatures. Whilst we currently only have Copians, we are also thinking about expanding that potentially in the future.
What? Oh, so it's the Copians that we're
The
going to
ends
hear
could,
on the
you could be
stations.
fighting bosses.
All right, never mind.
A boss fight?
Yes, we would definitely want bosses. They could be guarding the best loot. They could be mission-based bosses that spawn as well. So whether these boss fights come to the contested zones or not, in 4.0 or beyond, is still up for development, but I would personally really like to see that kind of thing added to contested zones to make them feel special.
So we're adding contested zones for 4.0 really to capitalize on the atmosphere, the lawlessness, having players compete with one another where there's really that tension of getting that loot out of there, but having to fight your way to do it. Fight your way in, fight your way out.
This is all PvP. So you got to be careful and always be watching out for other players.
Sounds like a meat grinder.
It could be a meat grinder, especially being in Pyro with the PvP aspect. That's something that we are designing towards. Players may choose to go in to hunt other players, which I think adds a really interesting element to, because not only are you wary of the traps, the puzzles, but you have to kind of be wary, watch your back, ambushes from players, that kind of stuff.
For the social core.
So it's funny that you mentioned that, Jinky, because that's exactly it. I think they're capitalizing on the battle royale, the extractor in space, and it makes 100% absolute sense. Now, one of the other things I'm starting to feel as I watch this and as my hopium kicks in a little bit more, and I think about down the line, I think one of the realities we're going to start getting is, as these new systems come online and come into play, and you're potentially spending so much time, what's up, Dua, going between the different spots, you may not ever come in contact with certain gameplay, depending on how you play, where you go, where your buddies hang out, where the people you meet take you to. You will really have to make an effort, I think, eventually. And and I'm thinking at current and past rate of development, this could be 6 years from now. With the development speed they've been touting and that we've been starting to see glimpses of, obviously not really counting 324, maybe 2 to 3 years. But that all depends on when we get the systems from Squadron 42 implemented in game, because those are ready and there's 5 of them, I believe, maybe 6. And those are done. They would just have to be adjusted to Star Citizen, because that game does take place, what, 20, 40 years before the time of Star Citizen? So anyways, let's keep on keeping on. Oh, hold up, Jinky. I like it in this case, honestly, and fits the world universe. Doesn't seem like an isolated arena like the other extraction games, which is actually really cool that it kind of flows. That was my thing with Marauders. Like, I always wanted to try the game out, but it felt so like get in, get out. Like almost like playing, it wasn't, at least with Tarkov, like there's like the like adrenaline rush of just trying to get through a map. I never got that feeling from watching people play Marauders that it was going to be the same, but it's kind of essentially Marauders without going to a loading screen and being able to fly your ship in and out. So, all right, let's keep going. We're almost done.
Or we've left the green zones so that people can still have an enjoyable social experience. So you don't have to worry about getting ganked every 2 minutes by other players, at least for the social space.
Unlike the global events that you know, such as Siege of Orison or Overdrive, these are spaces that always exist and that you can always go into.
Loot that you've already gotten is going to come back. The time door that we have is timed based off of the world. So you have a really huge incentive to stay there, to keep holding your ground, to really make this your space as long as you can before other people take it from you. And I think that that's one of the things that's really exciting to me about bringing this to Pyro.
So, yeah, it does look like TTK is on the high side for these videos, but that could be purely a creative decision to showcase more of what's going to happen, so it's not so immediate. Also, TTK has been going up slowly, which I'm not completely against, but there are certain things that still annoy me. Like, if you have a high caliber sniper rifle and you dome someone, they should go down in one shot, but that's just me.
Pyro has a number of asteroid clusters. They are the newer, larger asteroid clusters, so they should look and feel very different to the ones in Stanton.
Asteroid bases for us are really trying to take advantage of our universe better in terms of the locations that we have. Space is big, space is massive, but For our game, often we don't take as much usage of it as we should. We're taking procedural asteroids and we're carving these locations into it. And we're really providing a lot of variety in the gameplay in a form factor space.
Essentially, we're utilizing the station interior set that we have created, and we're wrapping them around an asteroid, a big asteroid that allows us to be a lot more versatile with the kit that we have and create some interesting layouts for you.
Asteroid Base gives us the opportunity to create missions where you can be in space, then you have to go on the interior to continue the mission. We made a little twist of the bunker, little space where we can have some missions, but in space.
Sometimes we could start with ship combat. You could have heavily defended areas on the outside. You could be engaging enemies outside on the landing pad.
Some of them even have copion infestations.
That should be fun.
That should be fun.
I'm actually really looking forward to that. I'd love a little bit of lore, backstory as to why they're there, but hey, that's just me. Probably wrangled up by the rough and ready guys and brought to the station as guard dogs or... Anyways. Yeah, bien envie de l'espace, je suis absolument d'accord. C'est plus ou moins ça, ouais. More fun than hunting copions in Hurston caves. I used to play caves a lot when I first started playing this game, but I haven't gone back to caves since then because I just have too many traumatic experiences of getting stuck trying to jump up a freaking cliff and the not being able to vault over a ledge, and it was just anyways. I'm good. I'm good. I'll wait for there to be a really, really good reason for me to go.
Asteroid bases are not just for combat. Because they're procedural asteroids, one of the things that's really cool about them is we can have multiple routes into these locations. So players can EVA and enter through a vent hatch. You could find your way in through a hangar. You could go straight through the front door. But there's a lot of room for exploration, finding loot that's been hidden there with loot crates, and find certain items that are important for you that you want to use to progress through Pyro, things that you haven't seen before in Stanton.
Can you tell us what that is?
No, I don't want to spoil it.
As a baseline, we wanted to bring Pyro up to par with all the content that we already have in Stanton, but also make it unique. We believe that with the addition of contested zones and asteroid stations and all the other little pieces will give us unique aspects that really make it feel different from Stanton.
We're really
Okay, this is all absolutely fantastic. I'm just worried that they're going to hype it up again and we won't see this until next year. I don't think that's the case. They haven't said anything about that being the case. They've also clearly stated multiple times that what's going on with 3.24 does not affect 4.0 and its release. It looks like there's way more done than I thought there would be. I thought Pyro would be a little bit more, not necessarily barren than this, but I mean, if we're just going off of Stanton, I didn't think there'd be this much stuff. And some of these zones look very intricate, very big, and I'm all for it. I'm all for it. And I just hope they deliver this sooner than later.
Looking forward to you finally getting your hands on the full experience of the stations. There's been a lot of effort put into them. There's a lot more diversity now inside and outside of the stations, both in terms of visuals and design.
Asteroid bases and contested zones for us are two really exciting new location types that we're bringing to the fans for Pyro. It's not a global event, so it's long-term. It's always going to be there. You can come back, get new cool stuff, advance your progression, and have fun with your friends and your party, your orgs, and, have a great time in Pyro.
So Penguin makes a great point. It already was pretty damn cool when we played it last year at SitCon, and that was a really fun test to do, which I think as cool it was to be able to do that test, I think is also a source of frustration and misunderstanding on players' part, because it's like, hey guys, we played half of it a year ago. Where the hell is it? The other reality is server meshing is also the big thing tied to it. That's the biggest thing. And to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if for 4.0 they go, all right, we got server meshing in, but because that took so much time, we had to get rid of this 1 or 2, 3 extra things. But don't worry, that'll come soon. I don't think I'd even be that upset with that. If we have the core of what Pyro is supposed to be, if we have some of this gameplay, the asteroid stations I think have just become what I am most excited for. I love the idea of contested zones, but you're not going into a contested zone solo. I will definitely be going into an asteroid base solo for sure. And just another reason to find loot, other places to go to get that loot. I'm all for it. If they have to cut content to get functional server meshing in, so be it. Absolutely. I want functional server systems, more content right now. I mean, I'm torn there. I want both. Just break it all. Let's just break it all together and just get through it. Let's just do it.
What else did we learn this week? Well, we learned that Rough and Ready have cornered the market on space stations in the Pyro system, and that green zones are in place to make the experience in station social areas a bit more manageable for players. That does not extend to the new contested zones, where chaos and carnage will reign supreme, and those who can temper it, solve their puzzles, collect their treasures, and escape will be rewarded for their efforts. And that asteroid bases should allow for a combined arms assault to explore what's contained within, and Christopher doesn't want me to say just yet. We want to make sure it'll work the way we want it to. For Inside Star Citizen, I'm Jared Huckabee. Don't forget to vote in the Ship Showdown when that happens. Don't forget to keep testing 3.24 and 4.0 in PTU when that happens. Thanks for letting us share the people and process of game development when that happens. And we'll see you all here next week for Fire.
Fire! Funnies? No funnies. I miss the funnies. Do you guys miss the funnies? I do. But, so that was our Inside Star Citizen this week. I think it's all really cool stuff we've seen, but as is so often with these ISCs, is we see all this really cool stuff, and it just doesn't follow quickly enough. And that, I don't want to be seen as someone who's just there shitting on the game, because I really don't. I like to give credit where credit's due, and it does look like they've done a ton of work, and it looks great. And for me personally, my frustration is just in the fact that I can't play it yet. But let's get that out the door sooner than later. With that, thank you everybody for joining. I hope you enjoyed my react. If you didn't, thanks for hanging out this long. And if you did, obviously, then consider leaving a like and subscribe. Thank you all. I will see you again next week for another one. Let me end meme. Exactly.